Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm Jeff Howard, and I am on Zoom right now with Adam Linkenhelt. Hey, Adam.
Hey. Good to be here.
All right, so it's funny. I feel like I've known you a long time because I've known your name a long time. Adam is on this podcast because, well, first, last year at Film Invasion LA in 2024, your film, The Unreliables, which you directed, and it was written by someone you're close to. I'll just say written by by your wife.
My wife and I wrote it together. Yeah,
right. First, combo together. I think you gave her sole writing credit, or
I think we shared.
Oh, you shared? Dang. Well, then the Film Invasion Los Angeles website is wrong because that website gave her sole writing credit, which means that's how you entered it on Film Freeway. But anyway, so you guys co-wrote it, you directed it, you both produced it, along with some other people who probably were just helpful because they provided children for the film and a location.
Pretty much, yeah.
I guess we should thank Katie Berry for that, because that's the other producer.
Yeah, Katie Berry's also like a producer in TV and stuff, so she knows how to produce too, so she was helpful. And also when her kids were wild, she helped tame them.
Excellent. And they're such a good. So anyway, the name of that film was The Unreliables, if I didn't say it, and it took home the Filmmakers Award for Outstanding Screenplay for a Drama, and it was credited to both of you. See, I have both your names with the award, and I just think The Unreliables is such a great film. So bravo. And the cool thing was that was Film Invasion 2024, and then you jump back to 2016, the inaugural Film Invasion. The first one we ever did, I think, and we showed a film that you co-directed called Passports. In fact, that film was written, produced, and directed by Adam Linkenhelt and Jeremy Pion Berlin. And I did not get to meet you there because Jeremy came to the screening and did the Q&A. So, oddly enough, I guess your name is super memorable.
That's good though, right?
Right? It is good. My name is I got the least memorable name in the world, whereas I saw the name Adam Linkenhelt in 2024 and I'm like, wait a minute, I know that name. And I just had to type it into the Film Invasion website and boom, I'm like, dang, he was in year 1 and he was in year 9. Which is very
it's cool. And I was really glad I got to go, and it was cool to see how, just how well that festival was run in 2024, and the quality of the Q&As and where it was held and everything was impressive.
Yeah. We thank you. We I guess I'll at you right away. You were the festival director of the Anchorage Film Festival.
Yeah, so this was my first year doing that, 2024, and it's looking like I'm going to be doing it again in 2025. So I guess film festival directing, doing that as well as filmmaking. So it's interesting to be on both sides.
Right, it's a nice balance. But I will do my best not to make this podcast about the fact that we both run festivals, because that's probably a little too inside a world that, oh man, we're probably both I'm way into it and you are now into it.
I'm getting super sucked in, but I come from filmmaking, and that's always been my,
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I mean, I'm sure you've made more than just Passports and The Unreliables, and those two are excellent works. So that's why you're here, to talk about your work. And I don't know, so I always start the podcast with the basic question, because I just love, as a fan of indie film and a fan of original creative art, particularly cinema, but honestly, I love art galleries, all that shit. I even love dance performances. But anyway, I just love that in this modern capitalist society, people are still doing these passion projects. Making a short film has to come from a place of passion for the art, because no one's making a short film independently, rubbing their hands together saying, when this sucker gets released, I'm going to get a big house in the hills of LA overlooking, the Hollywood sign. No, you make it because because the idea is so good or it just means so much to you that you just want to see it on screen, right?
Yeah, and I think sometimes you have greater ambitions for a short, or it's proof of concept, or you want it to connect you to someone in some way. But for me, the Unreliables so much was like, and what was even hard was, it wasn't just for film festivals either. It was just a piece of art that like I wanted to make because I was working a lot in television and working for networks and other people, and it was like I need to make my thing. And so I'm glad it connects with people, and I've had late night conversations at film festivals about it, and like people think about it, which has always been the director wants to hear the most.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I guessed right. That's why you're on this podcast, because you're exactly the kind of filmmaker that I'm just so grateful. I'm grateful, honestly, that people like yourself make these films. Not just because there would be no Film Invasion Los Angeles or Sherman Oaks Film Festival without films, but that just personally, I'm just so glad that people are making art in a world and in a society and a culture. It's funny. Sometimes I talk to the Europeans. They're like, yeah, I applied for the film a grant, and there's like, we get all these great films from Belgium. Oddly enough, Belgium is very supportive of their indie filmmakers, but particularly if you're LA based.
No, America's not very supportive of indie filmmaking, and neither is our industry really. And
No,
there's
the
a lot of
industry isn't.
use and abuse.
I mean, we don't even support public art. I mean, not to like totally hop on my soapbox and beat a drum, but you go to other countries or other cultures. Heck, I even go up to Canada where my best friend lives, and there'll be like public art. There'll be a statue in a courtyard and stuff. And here, if the mayor of Los Angeles said we're putting $4 million of public money into putting a new beautiful statue somewhere downtown in a public space, everyone would be like, no, use that money for something else. Like we're disconnected from it, I think, as a society.
Yeah, and I think, and there's just also just so many. I don't know. There's a lot of exploiters of it, I feel like, and even in the distribution bracket, it's like hard for indie filmmakers at a certain level to get any money back, which is makes it hard to embark on doing the projects sometimes. I've done
Oh man.
two indie in I've done a few two indie features. One I co-directed and the other as a producer and editor on. But both of those were, our team just going out and making these documentaries with our core group of friends who are all really talented filmmakers, you know, editing them either when we had time or laying out a specific tight schedule to like get it done to be financially not too disruptive and trying to use those independent projects to either like, you know, get other work or just getting them out in the world. But it's hard because, you know, you don't get a windfall of money from those.
You don't. And in general, well, I have spoken to so many people with features who, they're proud that their film got out there, but an indie distributor who signed the film, got it out into the world, and made sure they covered their own costs, and the filmmaker never saw a penny because that's how the world has been designed. Like the indie filmmaker is supposed to be grateful that someone is seeing their film and accept that in order for other people to see their work, someone else has to make the money. It's kind of tough.
Yeah, so I think, you know, just with filmmaking, it's like such a marathon and like such a like, especially with what's going on in the industry right now with, you know, you had the strikes and then the monopolization and just the, you know, I think the unscripted jobs, there's like 50% less people working, you know, and maybe in scripted it's like 20 or 25, but the surviving through all this is always just such a struggle, and surviving and continuing to try to make good work within that. It's always such a battle. But I think that, when you run a film festival, you see the people who do that, right? Who do find a way to continue making art, even in the face of, all these struggles, and it's inspiring and, pushes you to keep making stuff, is how I feel.
For sure, for sure. All right, well, that's a bit of a distraction because
Sorry.
what I'm supposed to get you to is me asking you what started you on the filmmaking journey, because I mean you're a very creative person. Both of your films that I've seen are really well made, but also unique and in their own way. I think it's a high compliment to call something challenging, right? Like I think Passports was challenging the audience to go with something that you don't always see.
Right.
And and I think the Unreliables is so compelling because there's characters making decisions that audiences don't always agree with. And, and that's the kind of shit that, I'm sure the notes from a studio would be like, great, change this, right? Because you don't want to piss off 70% of your audience, or whatever percent would be like, that guy's the worst fucking father of all time, I won't watch this. You know what I mean? So, but by the way, I'm going to add one more thing to your intro, which is A Close Encounter was at Sherman Oaks Film Festival in December. And that's another one that you contributed to. You were director and editor.
Yeah. That was I was brought onto that project to direct it, it was interesting because I made Unreliables, paid for Unreliables, co-wrote Unreliables. And after that, I was kind of looking for ways to direct that didn't completely drain me in every way. And so, and could stretch my legs a bit and like do a comedy film, do a horror film. And so it was nice that the year and a half after Unreliables, I directed 2 other shorts that were very different. But yeah, they're all, I started, in high school. I was always writing stuff when I was young. And then in high school, I had a video production teacher who was this really talented music video director. Did like the Sex and Candy music video. You remember that from the 90s? And some other cool stuff. And he would take us on these unofficial field trips to Cal Arts, where he was also teaching. And we would just go and sit in classes in the back. And as a high school student, and like watch a class at Cal Arts, and I think that was really inspiring and made me be like, okay, like I love film, but like I'm going to try. There's people who go to college and try to make film and continue to make it.
Right. So that was the moment you went from being a naturally creative kid who was writing stories and stuff, and just and being naturally creative and needing to tell stories and whatnot. But then it was that teacher exposing you to like that filmmaking is a form of storytelling, and and you were obviously a fan of film as a kid. Like you had favorite films and stuff, or? Yeah,
I mean, when I was little, my parents told me the story. They're like, you were a little kid. We almost had all the kids in bed. And then at like 8 p.m. or something, Jaws came on. And my mom was like, oh, I got to show him Jaws, This is way before I should have watched it. But I love Jaws. It's in my top films of all time. And I think that was like the start, was that kind of like that love of those kind of fun films my parents filled me with, and, would take me to movies a lot. And so I always loved movies, and I probably saw Die Hard way too young as well. And I think I got a bit of that just from my parents liking movies. And then, as I got older, I got into the art house and indie stuff, which was really exciting in the 90s because there was so much cool indie stuff like Memento and all these movies that weren't I remember seeing Amelie for the first time and just being blown away by like what was available in foreign cinema, and how exciting and visually inventive it was.
Right.
Um,
So that all came. Well, so when did you first grab a camera? Right. Because you said the visit to Cal Arts was pretty impactful.
yeah, I mean, I had a camera, was making films on the weekends before that, but it was more of like a hobby. I love this. I love making movies. I like editing. So I probably had a camera once I was in high school. But then I think the Cal Arts thing and was like, oh, there's colleges where you study filmmaking and you get better at it and you eventually try to make it a career path, And that was kind of like opening that door. Um, but after that, after I went to UC Santa Cruz and studied film. I went and I lived in the Philippines for like 3 years, working at a film studio there, starting out as an intern, and I just didn't leave for a while.
All right.
um,
I was that. This is insane. Was that a film school in the Philippines that was started by some rich American dude?
Rich German dude.
Rich German dude. Do you know Louis Schoenbrunn, who worked
Yeah,
there as a teaching editing?
yeah.
That guy cut my first film. Okay, so in like 1996. So I've
Yeah,
actually heard of that school.
yeah, AIFT, I think. AIFT, I think it was called. So basically, you had the film studio and the film school were they were across the street from each other for a while when I was there.
Well, I let
And
you jump too quick though. We jumped right. So at UC Santa Cruz, was it like a really, because I gotta admit, like a lot of people mention other schools in California, and actually you're the first banana slug who is I have friends who went there, so I say banana slug with true affection.
yeah, yeah.
But is it sort of a balance between hands-on and practical? I'm hands-on and theoretical, or is it a little more film theory because it's Santa Cruz?
It's film theory for the first few years, so it's like 2 years of theory before they ever be like, here's a camera. And so I ended up buying a camera, not a good one, but I ended up buying a camera myself before I ever got to the production part because I was like, oh, I can't just do two years of theory. Um, and I think and started just making stuff outside of the film program. And so by the time we started making stuff, knew what I was doing to some extent. But it was a great program, and the professors were awesome. I feel like, how probably people often feel like I wish I would have pushed myself harder while I was there, and like, I wish the program kicked my butt a little more, you know. But it was a beautiful school in the woods, and I think just the experience of going there was a good life experience, while studying, studying theory and all those things, and production. And I don't think if I didn't go to that kind of school that kind of opened myself up like that, I don't think I would have ended up leaving the country for several years after. So I think they were all like stepping stones.
For sure. And it sounds like, I mean, well, if your high school teacher took you up to Cal Arts, so you're a native Angelino like me.
I'm from Ojai.
Ojai. All
Yeah.
right. So you're from Ojai. Nice. Which is California, but it's not LA.
Yeah. I didn't go to LA a lot as a kid, but then once I was in high school, I would be like, oh, this theater is showing this indie movie by Jim Jarmusch. I'm going to drive to LA and go see it. And so that was what was exciting in like the early 2000s, was like, oh, I like indie cinema, and there's like these places for it, and I can kind of like go travel to it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not too
Because
far.
you're, what, like an hour away, basically?
Yeah, it's like an hour and a half.
Yeah. It's pretty cool to be an excited, to be a teenager. And, once you got a car, you're 90 minutes from like theaters and museums and all kinds of. So got it. So I guess I was going to assume that. So actually, going to Santa Cruz was very Ojai-ish anyway.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, because you know the woods. You're a woodsman.
Yeah, I mean, also a lot of people from Ojai go to Santa Cruz, so it wasn't like this. It wasn't stepping out of my comfort zone that much, I think,
Gotcha.
which has probably pushed me to be like, okay, I gotta jump in.
And I imagine growing up in Ojai, it's not like growing up in the San Fernando Valley or some other part of LA where like inevitably someone's parents work in, it's sometimes, yeah, so and so's like the guy across the street from me when I was growing up was actually a boom operator for classic 70s sitcoms like Mary Tyler Moore. Like the Mary Tyler Moore show, he was a boom operator. So like I was aware that there were jobs in the industry even as a kid. But Ojai, you're pretty removed from it, huh?
Yeah, I think it's changed now because so many people from LA live in Ojai now. They stormed it. But
Especially during COVID, huh? They
yeah,
all and
um,
didn't I might have closed by now, but I didn't the Brooks Academy in Santa Barbara move to Ojai?
yes. Oh well, it's like right on the outskirts. Yeah,
Right on the
yeah. And
outskirts,
so
and that's like a really great photography and film program.
that was kind of in my like. I started becoming aware of that right at the end of high school, and like, oh, okay, so people once again, okay, people go study this. This is a thing people pursue as a job. Um, but I think Ojai felt very distant from LA when I was growing up and from the
Yeah.
film industry.
All right, and then you end up in the Philippines, and you're really far from LA. No, what should I ask about the Philippines? I mean, I know you had a very different experience there than my other friend who worked at that academy.
I mean, it's like I worked at this crazy, I would call it almost Roger Corman-esque film studio that made unscripted TV, and the people who came there were so interesting because you have people who are willing to step outside their comfort zones, who want to work in the film industry, and are willing to take this big swing. And it was, we partied hard and we worked really hard and we went on adventures on the weekends and to explore not just the Philippines, but the rest of Southeast Asia. I mean, and a lot of the people I met there eventually gravitated back to Los Angeles, and a lot of us work together now. So, I mean, that's where a lot of my core friends and filmmaking buddies come from.
Oh,
Jeremy
excellent.
Pine-Berlin, who I co-directed Passports with, my DP on Unreliables, the guy I run the Anchorage Film Festival with. All those people are kind of these great creatives that, I met on the other side of the world.
And that's amazing, right? So most of the staff was kind of American, like the German guy focused on American, but then you also met, I believe your student body was super international, right? Like a lot of
Yeah,
people
yeah.
from India and
Yeah, the staff was international too. So I have like friends in India and UK and all that stuff.
such a cool, unique
So it
thing.
was it was really interesting, and it was so for a small town kid to be like living in Southeast Asia for a while. It was just exciting. It was the Wild East, and you know
Yeah, you're like you weren't
I
that far
think
from Manila,
that a
right?
lot
You
of
were on a different
people,
island, but I don't know. Would you hop on a boat and end up in
yeah,
like a major
Cebu's
city?
like you could, yeah. There was the second major city, Cebu, like right over the bridge.
Cebu, that's right.
And
Got
but
it.
Manila was
Oh
but
man, do I have stories for you when we're not recording?
I think yeah, me too. But it was a lot of people I think like go to film school, watch movies, make movies, and I think that it's so much. You have to remember to live and be pushed and have adventures and go through trauma, go through the things your life throws at you, and like I think all those things are really important to filmmaking and writing and making any kind of art. And I think It's interesting. Sorry if I jumped around a lot, but someone was saying who came to the Anchorage Film Festival that because we went on this glacier hike, we took like 50 filmmakers on a glacier hike, and they were saying how like getting out in nature and like facing nature, is such this great like refresh thing that, and we often don't talk about the things that the artistic process needs like that, you know, that are outside of just doing the writing and doing the work.
Oh my God. If I, with apologies to thousands of filmmakers who've done this, if you run a film festival, I'm not sure there's anything more boring than a short film about how hard it is to make it as a filmmaker, whether or a screenwriter. like if you are not living beyond the film world and experiencing things, whether it's nature or other cultures and that, if you sit down to write a movie and all you can do is write a movie about how hard it is to write movies, I just stop already. That's just, or take your gaze off your own navel and go do something. Yeah, because
be curious about other things.
Your work has to be informed by something other than your work. So, yeah, I totally agree with you. So after a couple years, you come back to Los Angeles. Uh-oh, it looks like Zoom is freezing on us. So it's funny, in the intro, I didn't bother with the Zoom qualifier, but we are on Zoom. So every once in a while, if it sounds like I'm pontificating, it's because Adam, now you're moving again. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
All right, cool. Because you were frozen on my screen. I was going to ask you, so after you said like 3 years you put in the Philippines, and then you returned did you return to LA or Ojai at first?
Yeah, I think I came back to Ojai, lived at my parents' house, bought a laptop, did a few edit gigs on that, and then moved in with some friends in LA who I'd met from the Philippines, and basically just was like, okay, gotta jump in and try to get jobs here.
And so you started
we.
I think we might be having a Zoom problem again.
Should I turn off my video maybe?
I was about to say, maybe turn off your video.
Turn off my video, does it help?
Yeah, you haven't. I can turn mine off too if we think downloading on your side is an issue.
I think it's on my side, I think.
Yeah. I admit I'm wired internet. I'm not using Wi-Fi. I'm the kind of guy who crawled through his crawl space to run an Ethernet cable from the router to his office so that I would have good connection. So anyway, all right. So you start editing and a lot of work as an editor, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, and then I ended up working in development as a development editor for a while, cutting reels to sell shows. And I did that for a few years. And then when some of those shows sold, there was this one called 24 to Life. It was on A&E, follows people the last 24 hours before they go to prison. And then you find out in the last 2 minutes of the show, like what they did. So that show, then I moved on as a producer onto that show. And then we made 2 seasons of that. And then when we were done with that, we ended up taking our same crew from that and shooting a feature doc called American Relapse. And I basically cut a trailer for that, and we showed that to Vice, and then we got a series greenlit from that then led to Dope Sick Nation. So then I was working on these like shows for a while.
And, funny thing is, without video, I don't know I just hear silence. But all good. All right, so you actually, that sounds really that's very cool. So you actually had some success sort of in the TV world.
Yeah, I mean I've been working in it for 10 years maybe, I think. So now I get to give you a different compliment, which is you're also that
you know, you're that person who got a career going, and then instead of just saying, okay, cool, this is my, you actually continued to want to create on the side, create your own stuff. Sounds
Yeah,
like.
absolutely. I'm just surprised how long between Passports and Unreliables. I mean, we made several feature films in between that time, but I didn't make a short film for that, you know, 9 years. And I was like, oh my God, I need to work with actors again. I need to, you know, create something from nothing again. Um, so Unreliables was not only the first collaboration with my wife, then girlfriend at the time, um, you know, that I paid for too, that I hadn't done a project, you know, I hadn't directed on my own in maybe a few years. And so it was like this culmination that like meant so much to me. And um, I was really proud how it turned out. You know, I was very, that it um, was
Yeah. So I
for
mean,
me a moving
I,
film.
are you implying that like your director's muscles, you hadn't flexed them in a little while?
I mean,
And
I
then,
flex them in more direct, in more documentary kind of ways, but like
yeah.
working with actors was something I just really missed. It's one of my favorite parts of filmmaking. And I've been so consumed in the documentary space for like almost a decade that like I hadn't been, you know, doing that, and I missed it. And the most I did it was when I would be, you know, work helping my wife with her auditions. You know, I'd be like, oh yeah, I like working with actors.
Well, and geez, not to throw out a cheesy joke, but the fact that you jumped back into directing actors with a cast that's basically half children, right? Like the Unreliables, there's two adults on screen and two young children on screen,
Pretty much, yeah. I mean,
and so that talk about that was pretty gutsy.
yeah, it was just the way we wrote it, and we knew, you know, everyone's like, don't work with kids, it's going to be hard. And I saw those kids do a short film with someone else, and it was kind of like a funny horror film, sort of. And I was like, okay, they're good, and I think they'd be willing to like be in this kind of dark world that I was trying to make. And I just think when I went over and met the kids, like, and watched their actual chaos, you know, like them climbing on the walls, climbing up the refrigerator, throwing donuts. I was like, okay, all this has to go in, and this will breathe life into, you know, when you make documentaries for so long, I think, and you come back to narrative, you're like, you really want it to feel as alive because you're used to staring at real people's faces, right? And now you're trying to make an actor's face give the same feeling that it feels to look at a real person's life falling apart or something. And so I just wanted it to feel alive and feel like the most alive scripted thing I'd ever made. And those kids, I think, brought so much to the chaos of that. And then Jen, acting in it, I think she was she could respond to it in real time so well. And that created, I think, this very lived in feeling that I really wanted my work to have after working in documentary for so long.
For sure. And I guess, now that you bring this up, like it does feel, I mean, the film has a real authentic feeling to it. I mean, besides the kids' performances being so natural and Jen being just absolutely outstanding in it. And the guy who plays the father also outstanding. So I am seeing how, well, I guess I'm interpreting it as because you had all that documentary experience, you were able to make the Unreliables a lot more genuine and vibrant than maybe someone who was super used to, controlling the little things as a director, like, am I onto something?
Yeah, and I think that was the balance on set, which is hard, like you're trying to make every image look really good. I didn't want to shoot it handheld, so it's not just like you're not just capturing it super raw either, but how within that frame do you make it really come alive and not feel like you place this actor exactly right here and still make it look super cinematic and have the colors work in ways that, give you emotions. And so that was the balance going, and kind of weighing that the whole time. But the thing I leaned on for everything is, does it feel real? Does it, that was always the main thing. Like, does that look like a real emotion? Does that look like we really captured that?
And you did. You absolutely did. I mean, honestly, every scene, every frame feels genuine and real.
What's interesting about it, just in like reflection of that film, is, it's about grief and parenthood and running from grief and all these things. And I mean, since I made that film, my mom passed and I had a kid and became a father, so it's crazy to watch the film and look at the film that about grief and about parenthood and running from grief after these crazy life events. And like, in some ways I feel like I nailed things. In other ways I'm like, okay, like there's details of this that I feel like I could have brought in as well. But
Wow, that's so intense. Well, first, I've lost a lot of people, including parents. So my sympathies and my congratulations on, of course, having a kid. But I knew
thank
that
you.
But yeah, that's pretty. Well, I still think you nailed it as someone who has. And by the way, I was the one thing that's always easy to leave out when discussing the Unreliables is Jen's character also makes some pretty serious decisions about what to do with her life and what that character's priorities are.
Right.
Besides grief and other things in the film. Yeah, I mean, honestly, my apologies. I forget the running time. It's not a super long short, but it's got so much to it.
Yeah, I think it was 18 minutes. I think my original cut was 35 minutes, which I had to cut it down a lot. But yeah, I mean, it's about running from grief, and that's the main thing, and how that gets in the way of other stuff. And so when you confront grief and deal with it in whatever way you need to, less chaos in some way will ensue, and you'll find peace in that is kind of the thing.
For sure, for sure. And I mean, natural question, I guess. So jumping back into the narrative world again, or away from the documentary world, I know I have, I struggle because so many documentarians always love to say to me, we have narratives in documentary. we're also telling stories. I'm like, I get it, but I just need a word for non, I'm not going to say non-documentary in documentary, but so did it give you, are you like aching to make a narrative feature now?
Yeah. I mean, I've always been aching to make a narrative feature. I've written a bunch with Jeremy Pine-Berlin, who we did Passports with. We've written a bunch of features, and I think it's just always trying to figure out how to get one off the ground, and how do you get one off the ground when you're also battling the survival of a filmmaker in Los Angeles and trying to maintain a career and also make your side projects. And it's just a dance that's always going, and I'm always trying to get a step closer,
Oh yeah, and super challenging to, you're a husband and a dad, and you have a job, and you have to, I assume everyone in your household needs food and shelter. So,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But I sure as F would hope that anyone who looks at your work would be like, well, I know if you got the funding for a feature, it would sure as hell look. I mean, it would be a good one. I mean, you show so much promise in these films.
Thank you. It means a lot.
And I mean, what can I say? The Unreliables. I shouldn't do this where I complain about, juries and stuff, but like, I do think that the Unreliables probably deserved awards it didn't get because juries, like when you make a film that's about real life, people don't realize that actually you deserve production design and cinematography, because the
Right.
production design and cinematography are fantastic in the Unreliables. But those awards always go to something like where they built a world in outer space or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like people are like, wow, that was a really, how'd they pull off a spaceship like that for an indie film? And then that gets production design. And like in my mind, Unreliables is just, it's just a beautiful looking film.
Thank you. It's funny about the production design, like there's like a book of lullabies where we even had the, the cover design specifically because we didn't want any copyright issues, and it's like, there's all these little details in there, which, there are in so many films, but, with awards and stuff, I think it's interesting, being on the other side of like film festivaling, like, you understand how not everything can get an award, you know what I mean? And you understand also how you're appreciated, even though, you might not get an award, I think. And I think I love awards, but, I think having like a humbleness about just experiencing a festival and getting to show your work, I think being on the other side has helped me more with that,
Yeah, I've actually, oh man,
less
I've known,
disgruntled about losing.
yeah, no, I get it. No, in a way, I was just expressing disgruntledness that, I'm aware that even though our juries, we got pretty cool juries, but still, there's like built-in biases with things like production design and cinematography, where it's funny. I still remember, and this is relates to the Oscars. I still remember a famous cinematographer reading some interview, and I wish I could remember their name, but this person was like, "Yeah, well, the Oscar, we just refer to the cinematography Oscar as, I think it was called Renta Vista or something, like whatever film was shot in Africa that year, like the Plains of Africa or, a World War One, whatever it was. Like it was really just the environment they were shooting in that was getting the cinematography award, not how hard it was to capture it.
Yeah, it's difficult to make the inside of a house look, and inside of a car look really exciting sometimes, you know.
Yeah,
But
whereas
that's
whereas when
Michael
it's
Goodman,
a
who
cowboy in the plains, you're like, oh, look at that vista, and it's like all they had to do was like just start rolling.
yeah, just want to throw props to Michael Goodman, who shot The Unreliables. He's a amazing DP, and also it was, and I think about this a lot, but just like, when people talk about like Roger Deakins, they go like, how does the cinematographer end up with so many good performances in his films? Like, why is there a correlation there? And I think that there's a quality in a DP that's not just about how they light, but also about their persona and the way that their personality on set and how they make people feel in front of the camera. And Michael Goodman, my DP, like he has that quality in such spades. And I think he brings a lot of that from the documentary work we've been doing, where, I mean, we used to sit, close to people who were like shooting up heroin and be comfortable with that and have them be comfortable with us. And, like you learn a lot in that kind of intense documentary space.
For sure. And that cinematographer is there, right? I mean, sometimes they're closer to the actors than the director.
Yeah.
So that energy has got to affect what's going on set.
Yeah. A good, it's, I think as I make more projects, it's always about learning how to make that energy on set like even better. Like, how do you make people feel heard all the time? How do you make them like feel comfortable all the time? How do you make them feel okay to be vulnerable? Like, those are the things I'm always like. And what's great is I come home from one day of shooting when my wife's the actress and she'll tell me what I did wrong, and so the next day then I can kind of like fix it.
So actually, you're getting direct feed when you're directing. You're getting direct feedback afterwards.
Yeah, exactly.
Like in that moment, I actually didn't feel. I'm sure she tells you the moments where she felt fully supported, and then like, yeah, I get you.
Yeah, she's like, could you have had it be like a little quieter on set at that moment? I'll be like, okay, sorry, yeah.
Got it. Very. Hey, I have to say, by the way, like, and after a decade of festival programming, it is interesting the old myth that like I'm so glad that I think we're finally done with the myth of like that like friends or couple like particularly couples when they create together. There used to be like this old sexist joke like now you're fighting at home and at work. Whereas that's just not the case, It's people work really well together as far as I can tell.
I mean, I think some people it works with, with myself and Jen, like we didn't know going into it if how it was going to be because we both she's an actress, she's worked on a bunch of stuff, I've directed a bunch of stuff, we watch a lot of movies together, but like, and we have some similar tastes, some different tastes, but I think that it was so artistically fulfilling and we were pushing each other in this very like guttural ways, to like go with your intuition, you're on to it, that it just it felt great. And then we directed, produced, and she acted in another project I did after that. So we liked it. And then we're writing a feature together as well. So
excellent. So there's no end in sight. You're continuing, you're moving forward, and it's nice that you and Jen are moving forward with your collaboration as well as the other stuff. So you already shot another one.
Yeah, I did. I think you rejected it from Sherman Oaks.
Shut up.
Yeah.
For real?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. It was called. It was at Dance with Films this year, but it was called Rattled, and it is a kind of a thriller around this couple having pregnancy issues and like the tension that grows in them, and it's fun. Someone else wrote it, and I was like, and I read it, and I was like, oh whoa, like you're writing about like the anxiety around like a woman's ticking clock and like around what that does in a relationship and how the man doesn't always listen to this kind of stuff. And it's like, oh, cool. And so that was the first project I did after Unreliables. And that was fun. And once again, a different, kind of horror, kind of dread poem kind of tone.
Excellent. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, you're right. I just looked.
It's okay.
But I can, you get it. You get it. You've run a festival now. I can tell you that it was right on the cusp, to be honest. Go figure. All right. Oh man, it's always funny. It's always funny to talk to somebody who goes, "Yeah, no, you didn't take that one." I'm like, shit. Anyway.
No grudges.
Excellent. And you've written a feature together. So really that's great. Yeah,
we've gone through the puke draft. It's the next part that's hard.
You know what though? That's I obviously you get that one because that's if you're precious about that first draft, it never happens. You have to put it out there.
No, and it's interesting. I'm trying to figure out how to bring like writing, like keep writing in my life while being a dad to new kid. And it's like that balance I don't have it down yet,
I mean, what about sleep?
Yeah, sleep. We're just getting it back. I mean, the first 2 months, it was like, oh, well, we get like 2 hours and then 2 hours and that's about it.
Yeah. And it's, and to sit down and write when you're exhausted, like physically, it's got to be the hardest time in the world to be writing is when you have a newborn. 'Cause Man.
Yeah, but trying to bring the writing back in.
You will. And, everyone has already said this to you. The kid's going to grow so fast, you have no idea. But,
Yep.
and then in no time, but you got a lot of good years, a lot of good years of play. There's nothing better than playing with a kid. And then one day they look at you and they go, leave me. I'm gonna go. I'd rather hang out with my friends. Adios.
I know all this sacrifice, and then they're just gonna be like, "You're a
Like,
loser."
I was your primary playmate for like the last couple years, and now put another kid in the room, and you're like, hey, dad doesn't exist. Whatever, I get it. But that's nothing new to that. Excellent. Well, do you have a website and stuff where people can check out all that you're doing?
I don't. I mean, you can just follow me on Instagram, Adam Linkenhelt on Instagram, and I share a lot about projects I'm working on or the festival I'm running or whatever's going on. A bunch of my stuff is available on Amazon, like American Relapse, Dope Sick Nation, From the Hood to Holler. Those are all those film, Bernie Blackout. Those are all available on Amazon.
Yeah, they all sound really. And those are a lot of those are docs.
Yeah. Those are all feature docs.
Man,
That I've either been a director
because I hadn't seen them. Like I didn't even dive into that, but I imagine a feature documentary. You're talking years of work.
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm editing a feature that I was on set for, or in the field for 10 years ago on day one. And we're just getting through the rough cut right now, or fine cut. But yes, sometimes it can take years. I mean, usually I'll try to take what I've learned from like schedule planning from network TV to apply a schedule that works, because when you're an independent filmmaker, you can't just work on a doc forever. You got to be like, you got to hit deadlines. You got to have a turnaround process when you get notes, and you have to have a plan so that you get to the end, that's been, I think, part of the success I've had in actually getting documentaries done.
Yeah, no, I mean it is I'm pretty impressed that you're able to balance between these worlds, because there's such different muscles, right? Like the documentary muscle is so different than the fictional muscle.
Yeah, I love what the like editing feature docs, right? You go in and you just know you could tell the story anyway, right? That's what's really crazy about a feature documentary is you can really tell the story anyway with any shot, any interview, but it's just you could do so many things with it. And I like bringing that into the editing process and a little bit the shooting process of fiction filmmaking as well, because I think when I edit a narrative, I there's a willingness to reshape it quite a bit, as much as it needs to be till it's like the best thing it can be.
For sure, but yeah, I mean, when you're editing the Unreliables, I mean, you have a story, you have a script that told the story, and you're being true to that story. Whereas when when you're editing a feature doc, you really are finding the story in the footage.
Yeah.
And like you said,
but when you're looking at you almost throw the script away in a way with narrative to me sometimes, because you're like, okay, if we have this footage, right, now that we've got this footage, now what's the best film with this footage? Forget about the script. Like, what's the best film with this footage?
Right, exactly, because that's the right way to do it, right? Yeah, there's everyone says it. There's three films. There's the film that's on the page, a film that's on the set,
film you shoot.
Then the film you shoot, and then the film you cut. And the one you cut is the one people see.
Yeah, so I think I try to just let the lessons from either of the worlds, bleed into help with the other.
Well, it's very cool. You're very well rounded.
Thanks. I appreciate you enjoying the Unreliables a lot. It's such a passion project and meant a lot to make it. And it's one of those films that every time I go to a screening of it, I actually enjoy watching it too. Like, which is a very nice feeling. Like to be like, I'm going to sit down and it engages me each time. So it's nice to have that with a film.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Excellent. All right. Well, hey, I'll wrap us up.
Okay.
I will, because we'll make at Adam Linkenhelt, your Instagram will be a clickable link in the show notes for those who want to learn more and check out more. And I will go on my closing spiel, which is, well, first, thank you, Adam. And thank you, everyone, for listening. If you want to learn more about please like and subscribe to the podcast. If you want to learn more about this podcast, and there actually was a little TV series that was born from the podcast, just go to discoverindiefilm.com. And on social media, it's always at DIFwins. And we mentioned both film festivals, actually, but Unreliables was at Filmvasion LA, as was Passports way back when. And now, oh man, you used your passport a lot as a young man. Okay, so anyway. So if people want to learn more about Filmvasion Los Angeles, we're actually holding this June is the 10th anniversary edition. Do you say edition? Year? Season? Whatever. So the 10th ever Filmvasion Los Angeles will be this June. People can learn more at filminvasionla.com, and it's at filminvasionla on social media. The sister festival every December is ShermanOaksFF.com, and it's at ShermanOaksFF on social media. And I'll mention that people should check out something called indiechannel.tv. Go to that website, see what's there. All right. That's all I had to do at the end. Adam, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jeff. That was awesome.
And thank you, everyone, for listening.